There is a specific kind of magic that happens when you take a polite, lightweight British roadster and shove a massive, rowdy American V8 engine under the hood. Most of you immediately picture the Shelby Cobra. It is the poster child for Anglo-American hybridization, a car that became a myth, a legend, and eventually a multi-million-dollar collector's item. But the Cobra wasn't the only car to attempt this alchemy. In the shadow of Shelby's snake, there was another beast prowling the streets of the 1960s. It was a car that offered the same recipe of V8 thunder and open-top freedom, but it did so with actual windows, a comfortable interior, and a price tag that didn't require a bank heist to afford. This is the story of the Sunbeam Tiger. To the uninitiated, it looks like a cute Sunday cruiser, but to those who know, this machine is the poor man's Cobra, a vehicle born from a desperate need for speed, engineered by the greatest minds in motorsport, and ultimately killed not by a lack of sales, but by corporate politics and a simple measurement issue. Today, we are going to explore how a quiet British convertible transformed into a drag strip terror and why it remains one of the most fascinating what-ifs in automotive history.
To understand the Tiger, we first have to look at the car it was based on, the Sunbeam Alpine. In the late 1950s, the Rootes Group, one of Britain's major automotive conglomerates, launched the Alpine as a civilized sports car. It was a lovely thing. It had roll-up windows, a proper heater, and a ride quality that didn't shatter your spine on cobblestones. It sat perfectly at the intersection of handling and comfort. In 1961, it even proved its efficiency by winning an Index of Performance award at Le Mans. But there was a glaring problem. In the horsepower wars of the 1960s, civilized was just a polite word for slow. The Alpine was powered by a 1.5-liter four-cylinder engine that was trying its best, but it was losing the war against rivals like Triumph and MG. The Rootes Group knew they had a fantastic chassis, but the heart of the car was too weak. They were desperate for an upgrade. Unfortunately, the company was tied up in labor disputes and didn't have the cash flow to design a new high-performance engine from scratch. They needed an off-the-shelf solution, something they could buy, drop in, and go. This leads us to one of the most incredible, almost moments in car history. The executives at Sunbeam initially had a wild idea. They wanted to partner with Ferrari. They actually approached the Italian giant with a proposal to put a Ferrari four-cylinder engine into the Sunbeam Alpine. Just imagine that for a second. A British roadster with a powered by Ferrari badge sold at a middle-class price point. It would have been a marketing goldmine. But as is often the case with Enzo Ferrari, the answer was a firm no.
Stuck with a slow car and no engine partner, the project stalled. That is, until Formula One legend Jack Brabham entered the picture. Brabham suggested a different approach. Instead of a complex Italian racing engine, why not use the new, compact, lightweight V8 that Ford had just developed in America? It was the 260 cubic inch small block. It was cheap, it was reliable, and it made torque for days. The idea reached the ears of Norman Garrett, the competition manager at Rootes, and his son Ian Garrett, who managed sales in America. They saw the potential immediately. But having an idea is one thing. Making a V8 fit into a tiny engine bay designed for a four-cylinder is an engineering nightmare. To prove it could be done, they initiated a secret development war. In a move that sounds like a movie script, Ian Garrett hired two separate legends to build prototypes. First, he paid Ken Miles, the legendary racer and mechanic, $800 to mock up a working concept. At the same time, he contracted Carroll Shelby, the father of the Cobra, paying him $10,000 to engineer a fully resolved prototype. It was a bit of an unfair fight regarding budget, and ultimately, Shelby's prototype won out. He had successfully shoehorned the Ford V8 into the Alpine chassis, creating a car internally codenamed the Thunderbolt. When the prototype was shipped back to England for review, the top brass at the Rootes Group were skeptical. They viewed the Alpine as a grand tourer, not a hot rod. Lord Rootes himself was reportedly unimpressed with the concept until he actually got behind the wheel. The story goes that he took the prototype for a drive, felt the surge of that American torque, and came back with a grin. The skepticism vanished. He essentially said, "Build it." Production began in 1964.
They couldn't call it the Thunderbolt due to trademark issues, so they revived a name from their history books, the Tiger. The Mark I Sunbeam Tiger was a revelation. Under the hood sat a 260 cubic inch Ford V8, putting out 164 horsepower. That might sound modest by modern standards, but you have to remember the context. This car only weighed about 2,600 pounds. That power-to-weight ratio transformed the car from a sheep into a wolf. To handle the extra grunt, the vague steering box of the Alpine was thrown in the trash, replaced by a sharp rack and pinion setup. Because the engine was so wide, the engineers had to route the exhaust virtually through the frame rails, a clever piece of packaging that kept the ground clearance reasonable.
Visually, the Tiger was a sleeper. Aside from a few badges and a chrome strip down the side, it looked almost identical to the cheaper, slower Alpine. But there were subtle tells. The V8 generated a massive amount of heat, so the front grille was redesigned with a simple egg crate pattern to suck in more air. If you pulled up next to one at a stoplight, the only warning you'd get was the low, burbling rumble coming from the twin exhaust tips. When the Tiger hit the showrooms, it offered something the Shelby Cobra didn't: livability. It retained the wood-grain dashboard, the comfortable seats, and the adjustable steering column of the Alpine. It was a car you could drive to work on Friday and race on Saturday, and people did race them. While the Tiger was never designed as a pure track weapon, the lure of the V8 was too strong to ignore. Two modified Tigers were entered in the 1964 24 Hours of Le Mans. Sadly, the heat issues that plagued the tight engine bay proved fatal in an endurance setting, and neither car finished. However, the Tiger found its true calling in rallying. The torque of the V8 combined with the rugged suspension made it a monster on rough terrain. In 1965 and 1966, Tigers took home trophies from the Geneva Rally, the Scottish Rally, and the brutal Monte Carlo Rally. It proved that this wasn't just a straight-line dragster, it was a tough, capable machine.
For the buyers who wanted more than the factory 164 horsepower, the connection to Carroll Shelby paid dividends. A catalog of performance parts was available through Los Angeles Tiger Options, or LAT. You could order aluminum intake manifolds, aggressive camshafts, heavy-duty clutches, and traction bars. With a few checks on an order form, a street-legal Tiger could be tuned to over 245 horsepower, turning it into a genuine Corvette killer. The evolution of the Tiger continued with the introduction of the Mark II in 1967. This is the holy grail for collectors. The 260 V8 was swapped out for the legendary 289 cubic inch Ford engine, the same block found in the Mustang and the Cobra. Rated at 200 horsepower from the factory, the Mark II was capable of 0 to 60 in 7.5 seconds, a blistering time for the era. The egg crate grille was replaced, and racing stripes were added to the side, signaling that the Tiger was finally embracing its muscle car identity. But just as the Tiger was reaching its peak, disaster struck. The demise of the Sunbeam Tiger is one of the most ironic tragedies in the automotive world. By the late 1960s, the Roots Group was financially underwater. They needed a savior, and they found one in the Chrysler Corporation. Chrysler bought the company, intending to expand their footprint in Europe. But when the Chrysler executives looked at the books, they saw a glaring problem. Their newly acquired sports car was powered by a Ford engine.
For Chrysler, having a flagship sports car with a competitor's heart was unacceptable. The order came down: put a Mopar V8 in it. The engineers scrambled to fit Chrysler's 273 cubic inch V8 into the Tiger's engine bay. They measured, they cut, and they tried every angle. But the distributor on the Chrysler engine was mounted at the rear, whereas the Ford's was at the front. The Chrysler engine simply physically interfered with the firewall and the steering rack. It would not fit without a complete and expensive redesign of the chassis. Chrysler was left with a choice: keep selling a car with a Ford engine and suffer the embarrassment, or kill the car entirely. They chose the latter. Once the existing stock of Ford 289 engines was used up, the production line was halted. In 1967, after a production run of roughly 7,000 units, the Sunbeam Tiger was extinct. The tragedy of the Tiger is that it died right when it was getting good. The Mark II production numbers were incredibly low. Only about 630 were ever made, making them exceptionally rare and valuable today. While a brand new Tiger cost roughly $3,800 in the mid-60s, A concourse quality Mark II today can command upwards of $190,000. It is no longer just the poor man's Cobra. It is a blue-chip classic in its own right. The Sunbeam Tiger occupies a unique space in history. It shares the DNA of the Shelby Cobra, the same father in Carroll Shelby, the same heart in the Ford V8, and the same British ancestry. But where the Cobra was a raw, uncompromising instrument of speed, the Tiger was sophisticated. It was a gentleman's muscle car, a wolf in sheep's clothing that you could live with every day. It serves as a reminder of a brief golden era where a handshake deal between a British sales manager and a Texas chicken farmer could result in a production car that defied logic. It was a car that shouldn't have worked, built by a company that couldn't afford it, only to be killed by a corporation that didn't understand it. So the next time you see a small, unassuming British convertible at a car show, take a closer look at the grille. If you see that egg crate pattern, and if you hear the low, distinct rumble of American displacement, pay your respects. You aren't just looking at an old Sunbeam, you are looking at a Tiger.